Hi everyone, Dr. Monette here to welcome you to week 8 for EDU 210. So last week we started talking about gamification and you explored 5 different types of formative assessments that can be done using technology. And this week we're going to continue to discuss gamification and we're going to explore something called digital breakout. And we're also going to continue our Google Teacher Level 1 certification training. So to get started, what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down to the bottom and you're going to see what is due for week 8. So just like every week, the very first thing you're going to see is anything you need to respond back to. So for peer discussion board responses this week, you have to respond to 2 peers formative assessment discussion boards and to 2 peers chapter 5 post. Use the links in here to see how to respond to people, as this is a review from what we were finishing up last week. So a couple of other things in here for this week is you have a Google Form digital breakout discussion board post that you will have, and you're going to be working on Unit 7 of your Google Teacher Certification Training. There is no textbook chapter reading for this week. We'll pick that back up in week 9. But for this week, you're going to be focusing on these 3 main sections. So for your digital breakout, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the hyperlink and it will take you to the Google folder where all of the gamification materials were. So again, there are 3 different assignments in this folder. This one was for last week and this one was for last week. This is the one that we're going to focus on for this week. And it's called gamification and digital breakout. So you're going to click on it and it will open up. So for a quick review, gamification is when you apply typical elements of games, which are things like scoring points, competition, rules, so that they are applying course content, so that they're reviewing and all of those good things. Well, one of the most popular games today are escape rooms. Well, escape rooms can be very, very engaging. They're physically active to where you're trying to solve a series of puzzles and riddles and clues to escape a room. Well, they could be a little expensive because you need things like lock boxes and you need different things to make the theme and all these different elements. However, there are ways to use technology to use the same concepts but in a more cost-effective manner, and those are called digital breakouts. So right here, just to kind of give you an idea of what an escape room is, there's 2 links here that will kind of give you an idea of how you can use it in your classroom. So as we go down, like I said, escape rooms are a lot of fun for students. They're also very engaging, and it's a way to get students to apply content in the form of riddles, hints, clues, and things like that. However, again, it can be costly to set up those types of rooms because you have to have locks and all those things. But digital breakout is a way that you can still use those components. So digital breakouts is an online escape room. So instead of actually building the room and having the lock boxes and all of that, you can use Google Forms to lock them in a scenario. And you can still use the same basic elements of the escape rooms like the timer and the sound effects. And you can still have a really engaging mystery on your hand or challenging situation to where they have to escape. But it's used in a digital way. And you could still do it with partners and groups. So digital breakouts, like I said, are very more cost effective. But just like a escape room, it does take time to set these up. So there's a lot of resources here that you can see and a lot of guidelines for how to do it. For this digital breakout, it is up to your creativity, as creative as you want to be. But again, the more engaging you can be with your scenarios and your clues and your puzzles, the more into it your students will get. And regardless of the subject, you can tie it in with elements of dance, elements of art. They could be solving math problems as their riddles. It could be history based where they have to use certain clues or certain dates or certain people, you can make it very, very creative. But the scenario itself, it could be aliens, it could be escaping from Alcatraz. There are so many different ways that you can use this. So for your digital breakout, you're going to use Google Forms to create this. But before you could really get started, you have to select a grade level, a subject, and a standard you want to create your digital breakout for. So here's a link to the South Carolina standards for all of K-12 subjects. After you have pinpointed what grade, subject, standard you want, now you need to develop questions, clues, or riddles that will align to your standard. Now, when you develop your questions, you also need to develop an answer key. Now, I gave you a note here to kind of let you know that when it comes to questions, clues, and riddles that you're using, you have to have a definite answer. It can't be subjective. It also can't be where they're writing sentences or paragraph. It needs to be maybe a word, maybe two, or maybe an answer to a math problem or the name of someone. Now, when you do this, the reason it has to be a definite answer is because in Google Forms, you're going to be using something called a locked assessment. And with this, you have to be careful because if the students don't write the exact answer the way it is, so you need to tell them things like capitalize it or use punctuation. You may even, depending on what they're doing, you might even want to give them a word bank. I would not suggest giving them a word bank that just has the answers on it. Make sure that some of the things that are on a word bank are not needed. Same thing for like math. I necessarily wouldn't give them a number bank because they should be able to solve the problem on their own. But things like if it's terminology or names and they're hard to spell, you could give them a word bank. But again, make sure that there's other words on there that are not answers, or it's going to become really simple for them. And once they mark out some of them, they're going to know what they are at going towards the end, and it's not going to be as engaging, and you're not going to get the data that you want to test their knowledge of the subjects. So again, it needs to be very, very definite. It needs to be a yes/no type of question. It cannot be subjective because they won't be able to move on. Because when you use a locked form, again, if they don't write it correctly or spell it correctly or capitalize it, it's going to lock them out and they won't be able to move on to the next riddle or the next clue or the next question. So make sure that you have a very distinct question and a definite answer. And make sure that your directions are very, very specific to your students. So if it's only lowercase, make sure you tell them that. If there's hyphens, make sure you tell them that. If you're using capitals, make sure you tell them that. So very, very clear directions or your digital breakout will not properly work. So after you have your list of questions, clues, riddles, and your answers, this is where you're going to want to start creating your scenario for your digital breakout. And there's lots of examples here that I gave you. One of these is one that I use for one of my classes. I use it for EDU 385, where I want you to review things like instructional strategy. So I created a digital breakout where you are trying to stop aliens from, you're trying to use your knowledge of instructional strategies to stop aliens from being able to use it. So you're trying to escape from the alien. So you can kind of see how that's set up by clicking on that link. Here's another example called Escape the Dragon. So obviously the function of that would be to solve these clues and riddles so you can escape the dragon. Here is 25 different escape room themes that you can steal right now. So beg, borrow, steal. And then here is Teachers Pay Teachers. Some of these do cost, but you can kind of get ideas from some of these because you're not going to necessarily be using their questions and their clues, but it may give you a theme idea. So these will give you some inspiration for that. So you're going to want to create some form of scenario to get your students engaged in whatever the clues and the riddles that you're going to be giving them. Then, in good escape room fashion, you have to have sound effects and a timer. So here are some really great ones from YouTube, and you can kind of go and search more if you need to, but here are some for escape room sound effects. So for my digital breakout with the aliens, of course I have like space music playing and sounds like invaders are coming and things like that. But for Escape the Dragon, you would want something a little bit different. And there are escape room sound effects for almost any theme that you can think of. And then there are tons of timers as well. And then if you would rather have escape room music, they also have music and sound effects. So you can kind of choose which ones you would prefer to do. Now, after you have your questions, your clues, your whatever that may be that you decide, it may just be questions, riddles, clues, and your answer key. You have your scenario picked out. You know what you're going to put into it, and you have your music and your timer. Now you're actually going to build your digital breakout using Google Forms. So again, make sure you have very clear directions or your digital breakout will not function properly and your students are going to get frustrated and you're going to get frustrated. So make sure that you tell them if you're using capitals, if you're using lowercase, if they need to use hyphens and things like that. Be very, very clear. And then use these links below and it will show you how to create a digital breakout using locked forms in Google Forms. So there's 2 links here that will show you. One of them is more showing you how to use locked forms and the other one is trying to show you how to use it as a breakout game. So, but they're both very, very good. So use those to help you. And if you have any other questions, of course, ask me and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. So after you get done creating it, you are going to post it to the discussion board so that we can see your amazing Google Form digital breakouts. And we're going to give you lots and lots of feedback for this. So after creating your digital breakout, in Blackboard, in the digital breakout discussion board, you're going to create a post where you include the standard, the grade level, and the subject. You're going to give us the questions, the clues, or the riddles. You could have a combination. You're going to make sure that you give those to us too, and give us the answer key. Now that's because you would not be there when we're going through it to be able to necessarily answer if we got stuck. So giving us the answer key is just trying to help us to help you know if it's functional or not. And part of our response to you is to let you know if things are working properly and things like that. So your answer key and your questions are going to help us to give you the feedback that you need. Also, provide us a link to your sound effects and your timer that you would use so that we can engulf ourselves in the digital breakout and in the escape room environment. Also, tell us the time limit you would give students to complete this. Some escape rooms are an hour. Most of us would not use an hour in our classroom to do this, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. So give us the time, but make sure that we have enough time to successfully get out of the room. And then also give us the Google Forms share link so that we can access your digital breakout. Now, make sure that you share it with us as if you were giving it to us as a student. You don't want to give us access to edit it. And since you gave us the questions and the answer key, we would be able to go through it like a student would. So make sure that you share it to where we're not editing it, but that we can actually do the digital breakout as if we were students. Now, after you've posted, the following week, you're going to respond to 2 peers. So you're going to pretend you're a student. You're going to use the questions, the clues, and the riddles, and the answer key to go through the digital breakout as if you were a student. Now, make sure that when you're reviewing it, you give them feedback in regard to the time parameters. Did you have enough time? Were there any alignment issues? Were any of the questions causing you trouble? Anything that they could use to strengthen their digital breakout. Also tell them some things that they did well. Was their scenario engaging? Did their music align with it and make it more engaging? So give them really good feedback in regard to just the environment that they use in their theme with their digital breakout. So for that, your rubric is down here below. So just making sure that you follow along with all the directions and it aligns with that. So as long as it's functional, it's successful, it's creative, it aligns, Those are the most important parts. But again, be as creative as you can at this time. I know a lot of you, this is your first time ever hearing of this and trying. So we're here to give you lots of feedback. And as we do, you'll be more comfortable with doing these. But again, students absolutely love these. And it's a very hot thing to do right now. So people love to, you see escape rooms popping up everywhere. So this is just a way of using what they like in the classroom. So another thing, going back over into your weekly directions and guidelines, the other thing that you're going to do is your Google Teacher Certification training for Unit 7. This will take you 85 minutes to complete, so about an hour and a half-ish. And remember that when you post it to Blackboard that you are showing me the percent, you're showing me the questions and the answers, and you're putting it in the Unit 7 folder. And that is how I will grade your completion for that unit. Again, you don't have any chapter readings for this week. You only have these two main things to do, and then responding to your peers. If you have any questions or have any trouble with your digital breakout, please let me know. Again, give me plenty of notice so that I can respond to you and give you good feedback. And just let me know if you have any questions.